Hey, welcome to Spectral Echoes, a collection of Reddit stories as told by people high as a kite. But it's Reddit, who knows, right? If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, so you don't miss out on these awesome horror stories. Now, let's get started.
The shadow at the foot of the bed. I never thought I would tell this story, but it has haunted me for almost a year, ever since I moved into a small apartment in Jersey City, New Jersey. The apartment was on the third floor of an old brick building with narrow, dim hallways that smelled of damp wood, and the stairs creaked, creak, creak, whenever someone walked by. I rented the place because it was cheap, close to the PATH train, and only about a 30-minute ride to my job in Manhattan. My bedroom was small, just big enough for a queen-sized bed, a small wardrobe, and a desk pushed against the window. I placed my bed so that my feet pointed toward the door, and from where I lay, I could see the door and a slice of the hallway if the door was left open. I had heard people say 3 a.m. is the devil's hour, but I never cared. I've always been a heavy sleeper, waking only if a train horn blew too loudly at night. But everything began on a night in October at 3:12 a.m. That night, I woke up with the suffocating feeling that someone was staring at me. At first, I thought it was a dream, or maybe I was just tired from working late. But I opened my eyes and stared into the heavy darkness in the middle of the room. At the foot of my bed, near the door, I saw a shadow standing silently. It was tall, thin, nearly as tall as the doorway, but I couldn't see a face, no arms, no clear legs, just a darker shape against the darkness. I didn't dare move. I tried to breathe as quietly as possible, hoping it wouldn't notice me. I told myself it was probably just the coat I had hanging near the door, swaying slightly. But it wasn't swaying. It was still, watching me. I closed my eyes, pulling the blanket up, my heart pounding so loud, thump, thump, thump. I could hear it in my ears. I counted silently, hoping that when I opened my eyes again, it would be gone. I opened my eyes again. It was still there. I turned to face the wall, pulling the blanket tighter around me, trying to ignore it. That night, I didn't sleep again, just waiting for the faint gray light of dawn to slip through the blinds before I dared to sit up. The next morning, I told myself it was just a trick of my tired eyes in the dark. I cleaned the room, hung up my clothes, wiped down the bookshelf and desk, and made sure the alarm clock I kept on the bedside table was in place. That night, I didn't see it, and I convinced myself it had just been a dream, maybe something I imagined after reading too many stories on Reddit before bed. But 2 days later, I woke up again, exactly at 3:12 a.m., and the shadow was back at the foot of my bed. This time, I wasn't frozen like before. I decided to reach over and turn on the small lamp next to my bed. In that instant, as the warm yellow light cut through the darkness, the shadow disappeared. The room was empty, still, painfully silent. I turned off the lamp, lay back down, but I couldn't sleep. I looked at the clock, 3:15 a.m. Why always 3:12? Why the same spot, the same silent shadow? The next day, I bought a small camera and set it up on my desk, pointing it toward my bed, letting it record while I slept. I wanted proof that it was all in my head. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. Everything looked normal until 3:11 and 48 seconds a.m. I saw myself shifting slightly under the blankets. Then, at 3:12 and 2 seconds a.m., the screen glitched, bzzzt, hiss, lines of white static rolling across the image. When the picture returned about 6 seconds later, I saw that the alarm clock on my bedside table was now on the floor, batteries rolling under the bed. I rewound and replayed it, but the exact moment the clock fell was lost in that burst of static. A cold shiver crawled down my spine as I watched it over and over. My hands shook as I paused the video, the room in the video still and quiet. The only sound in my apartment now was the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I started asking around about the apartment, questioning the building manager about who had lived there before me. He just shrugged and said a young couple had lived there, left in a hurry after about a year because of a job relocation. I don't know if I was scaring myself, but once I started paying attention, I began to hear strange noises at night. Soft footsteps, Tap, tap. In the hallway at 2 or 3 a.m., the sound of a window creaking open. Creak. Even though I had locked them tight. One night, while I was lying in bed listening to a podcast before sleep, I felt something standing close. So close I could almost feel a cold breath brushing against my face. Hiss, hiss, quiet, measured, icy. I jerked awake, but there was nothing there. But in the glow of the streetlight slipping through the blinds, I saw a shadow on the wall, tall and thin, standing beside me. That night, I cried, not sure if it was out of fear or exhaustion, unable to take it anymore. A week later, I decided to leave. You might be wondering why I waited a week, even though I was scared to death. But the conditions were not right, and I thought I would have to wait months. Damn it. I packed my things in silence, refused to spend the last night there, sat on the couch in the living room with all the lights on. Before I left, I glanced into the bedroom one last time. The room was empty, but I could feel it watching me from the corner. Not watching me, not trying to stop me, just waiting for the next person to rent the room. I left my old apartment in Jersey City at 5 a.m., the sky still gray and damp from the morning fog. As I drove away, I looked up at the bedroom window in the rearview mirror, and for a split second, I thought I saw a dark figure watching me leave, motionless. I didn't know what it was, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But if you wake up at 3:12 a.m. and see a shadow at the foot of your bed, don't close your eyes for too long, because when you open them again, it will probably be closer, step by step, quietly, until you can feel its cold breath on your face, and you'll never want to sleep alone in your bedroom again. Like me.
The whisper from the closet. All right, fuck it. I'll tell you what happened. I'm not saying I believe in ghosts or whatever, but this shit was real. I'm a pretty normal guy. 26, moved into this old apartment in Brooklyn last year. 3rd floor, creaky floors, shitty radiator. You get the vibe. My room was tiny. Mattress on floor, a cheap desk, and this old-ass wooden closet that smelled like dust and wet socks. The landlord said it came with the place. So whatever, I just stuffed my jackets and hoodies in there and moved on. The first few weeks, nothing weird. Except at night, I'd sometimes hear the wood creak, like it was shifting. Old wood, I thought. Rats, maybe. Who cares? Until one Thursday night. I was scrolling TikTok, earphones in, when I heard it. A tap, tap, tap from inside the closet. I pulled out one earbud, sat there listening. Silence. Shit, I muttered, probably nothing. I went back to scrolling, but then I heard it again. Tap, tap. I turned off my phone, stared at the closet. My room was dark, except for the streetlight slanting through the blinds. My heart started kicking up. Thump, 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 like it knew something I didn't. Then I heard it, a whisper, so soft I thought I was losing it. Hey! Fuck. Nope. I stood up, flicked the light on, and just stared at that old wooden door. My breath felt loud in the room. I don't even know what I was expecting, but I opened the closet. Hinges squealed, creak, as I pulled the door. Nothing. Just my hoodies, a backpack, some shoes. I ran my hands along the back, the sides, under clothes. Empty. Get a grip, man, I told myself. I shut the door, sat back down, tried to laugh it off. But the second the light went off, I heard it again. Don't close it. My chest locked up so hard I couldn't breathe. My mind was screaming, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck. I snapped the light back on and backed away from the closet, tripping over my laundry pile. I slept on the damn couch that night. Lights on, TV playing some YouTube rain sounds, so I didn't have to hear shit. Morning came. Sunlight hit the closet. It was just a closet. Just a dumb old piece of wood in a dusty apartment. I convinced myself it was sleep deprivation. Stress. Maybe it was neighbors. I'm not a coward, all right? I went about my day, went to work, grabbed a coffee, made dumb jokes with my coworkers, tried to forget about it. That night, I left the closet door open. Let it breathe, right? I needed to prove it was nothing. Around 2:40 a.m., I woke up to the sound of fabric shifting, like someone moving clothes on hangers. I froze. My eyes adjusted to the dark, and I could see the inside of the closet. just shadows, but it felt like something was in there. Then, from inside, came a whisper again, soft and trembling, like a girl. A girl. God damn. I swear, at that moment, I thought of 1001 ghost stories. Even a ghost about to crawl out of there and pounce on me. But I couldn't do anything. I just lay there, sweat dripping down my neck, hands clenching the blanket, so hard my knuckles hurt. Silence. And then, so quiet I almost missed it. But no, this time it was a complete sentence. Let me out. I bolted, grabbed my phone, flashlight on, pointing it at the closet. Nothing moved, but the clothes were swaying, swish, swish, like someone had just brushed past them. I didn't sleep. I didn't even sit down. I just stood there, phone in hand, until the sun came up and light filled the room. I called in sick to work. Spent the whole day sitting in the living room, drinking cold coffee, eyes on the hallway that led to my bedroom. Every time the floor creaked, I jumped. That night, I left it open, just to see. I lay in bed, trying to keep my breathing steady, trying not to look. At some point, maybe 2 a.m., maybe later, I heard the softest sound. Rustle, rustle, like fabric brushing against fabric. I held my breath, eyes on the ceiling. Nothing. And then, like a sigh and giggle, I turned my head so slowly it hurt. My eyes burned. The closet was just there, open, dark. Nothing moved. I whispered, so quiet I could barely hear myself. Hello? Silence. I lay there until morning. Now, weeks later, I still think about that whisper, about that moment when everything was too quiet. Sometimes I remember the exact tone of the voice. Sometimes I think it was my own voice echoing back at me. I moved the next day. God knows how much money this madness cost me, but it was worth it. Otherwise, I would have gone crazy. Sometimes I wonder if it was ever there at all. Or maybe I heard wrong. That time was really bad for me. Tiring too. But what if it's real? I don't want to know what it is anyway. God damn it.
The puppet in the mirror. I've always had a mirror in my room. My mom used to say it's good to check yourself before leaving. Make sure you're really you before you step out into the world. And, I'm a pretty good-looking girl, so I like to look at myself, you know. This mirror came with me when I moved to my small place in Astoria, Queens. A tall, cheap floor mirror from Target, the kind with a thin black frame that wobbles when you walk too fast across the floor. For a long time, it was just a mirror. Another rectangle in the room. I never really thought about it. I work a lot. Too many shifts at the cafe, coming home with hands that smell like espresso and burnt milk, tips jangling in my pocket, mind too tired to think. I shower, eat something half-warm from the microwave, scroll on my phone, pass out. That was life. But there was a week last fall when I was covering for a coworker, working open to close, stumbling home at 10 p.m., half asleep on the train, the world a smear of lights and murmurs. I started noticing the mirror more during that week. How, when I walked past it, there was a flicker, like the reflection lagged, half a beat behind me. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the cheap glass, warping under the cold air leaking through the windows at night. I'd pause sometimes, catch my reflection, wave a hand slowly, watch it move. It always moved, but it felt off. One night, around midnight, I got up to grab water. My head was heavy, buzzing with half-dreams, and my body felt disconnected, floating. As I turned from the sink, I caught a glimpse of the mirror in the dark, the streetlight outside giving it a dull glow. I paused. In the mirror, I saw myself standing by the sink, holding the cup. Except I had already put the cup down. My reflection was still holding it, head tilted, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read in the dim light. My breath caught. Then the reflection moved, setting the cup down, turning, sinking back with me. I stood there, hand on the counter, staring. "Get a grip," I whispered. I went back to bed. I started avoiding looking directly at the mirror. I'd glance quickly, catch my hair, my clothes, move on. If I saw movement that didn't line up, I told myself I was tired, that I'd blinked, that it was nothing. But some nights, I'd wake up and see it from my bed. The glow of the streetlight would catch the glass, and I'd see myself lying there, blankets pulled up, eyes open, watching me. And I couldn't tell if it was really me. I remember one morning, getting ready for work. I was late, rushing, yanking a hoodie over my head, hair a mess. I glanced at the mirror, pulling the hood up, trying to flatten my hair. The reflection was smiling. I wasn't. I really hope it's just me seeing things, the lighting or something, even MDMA, even though I don't even use it. I froze. My reflection froze. I raised a hand, slowly, fingers trembling. My reflection raised a hand, same speed, same angle, smile gone. I dropped my hand, grabbed my keys, left the apartment without breakfast. On the train, I kept seeing my face in the dark window, reflections in the glass doors, in the phone screens of other passengers. All of them normal. Normal enough. And then, I threw the mirror away immediately, watched it crumble to pieces, and then left. Luckily, it didn't come back to find me. Haha. Really lucky. In case you're wondering, I'm still in the same place, and haven't seen anything strange anymore. I didn't tell anyone about this, not even my mom, because I was afraid she'd worry. Anyway, the mirror was fine until I moved here. But I can't move, at least not for a while. Bonus. Update. I've moved to a new place. To be honest, I still feel like my mirror is fine. The problem is that room. But unfortunately, I can't prove it. Well, I don't want to prove it. But I don't dare to keep a mirror in my room now. And also limit looking in the mirror.
The figure on the chair. There's an old armchair in the corner of my room. Heavy and, ugly for me. Lumpy arms and fabric that's gone thin in places. The kind that smells faintly of dust and something else I can never quite place. Like the memory of cheap cologne or someone's long-faded perfume. It was here when I moved in. A leftover from the last tenant who, according to the landlord, left in a rush. I didn't think much about it, of course. I didn't even care the person who used to live here. It was just a chair, a place to toss my hoodie or drop my bag after long days spent balancing dishes and coffee cups at the cafe. A spot to catch the mess of my life that I didn't have energy to clean at midnight when I stumbled back to. The first time I saw it was in that hour of the night when everything is hushed but your own mind. The world outside silent except for the low purr of traffic far away and the occasional creak of the building settling. A time when shadows lose their edges and shapes become something else if you stare too long. I woke up without knowing why, eyes flicking open to the thin glow of the streetlight cutting across the floor, and it took a moment to understand what was different, what was wrong, why the air felt heavier and the silence felt crowded. My eyes adjusted and I saw it, a shape in the chair, small, hunched over, arms wrapped around itself, head bent down, shoulders rising and falling in a tremor so soft it looked like it was breathing or maybe crying, but there was no sound, no sobs, only the slow, rhythmic shaking that made the shadows dance gently across the walls. I lay there frozen, breath stuck somewhere in my throat, watching it, trying to tell myself it was just the pile of clothes slumping in a way that tricked my eyes, the shadows shifting with every flicker of a car's headlight outside, telling myself I was tired, that I'd been working too much, that this was what happened when you let yourself get worn down. But as I watched, I felt the heavy certainty that this was not a trick of the light, that it was not the clothes, that there was something. In that chair, sitting there quietly in the dark, its presence pressing against the silence like a hand against glass. I wanted to call out, but my voice didn't work, and in that stillness, I became aware of my heartbeat pounding in my ears, the heat of it flushing against the cold air, and still I watched as the shape trembled, not violently but softly, like it was trying not to be heard, like it didn't want to disturb me. I don't know how long I lay there, eyes open, blinking slowly, each blink feeling like the edge of sleep, each breath shallow, until at some point I saw it lift its head. I still could not see its face, the shadows too deep, the light too thin, but I felt its eyes find me, and for a moment the room felt smaller, like we were sharing the same breath, the same heavy air, and I waited for it to move, to come closer, to reach for me, but it didn't. It only sat there, looking in my direction, and I could not tell if it was asking for something or simply acknowledging me before it lowered its head again, shoulders shaking softly as before. I must have fallen asleep watching it, or maybe I fainted under the weight of that moment, because the next thing I knew, the early morning glow making everything grey and soft. The chair was empty, the clothes piled on it like always, the room quiet in that way morning brings, but on the fabric of the chair, there was a small, dark circle, a stain that had not been there before, like a teardrop that had soaked through, or many tears falling in the same place until they became part of the chair. I touched it with my fingertips and felt that it was cold but dry, and I did not know if I should clean it or leave it as it was. That day, I found myself thinking about the last tenant more than I had in the weeks since I moved in. I wondered who they were, what kind of life they had here, whether they were lonely, whether they sat in that chair late at night with their head in their hands, shoulders trembling with the quiet weeping of someone who has run out of words, whether they had anyone to notice that they were not okay, and whether they left quickly because they could no longer bear the silence of a room that remembered too much. I wondered if the shape I saw was them, if they had come back, or if they had never left, if some part of them had been left behind, quiet and small in that corner, long after the rest of them had gone. I tried to be afraid again, but the fear did not come as it had that first night. I found myself watching the chair sometimes before going to sleep, half expecting to see the shape there, half hoping I would, and when I thought I saw the slightest movement, the faintest shift of a shadow, I did not turn away. I would lie there and whisper softly, so softly I barely heard myself, "It's okay," and I did not know if I was speaking to the shape in the chair or to myself. Days became weeks, and sometimes at night, I would wake to that same heavy silence, that same awareness that I was not alone, and I would open my eyes and see it there, small, hunched, shaking in the dark, and the fear would rise for a moment before settling back down, leaving me with a quiet ache that felt like regret, like I was intruding on something private and sad, something that was not meant to harm me but simply needed a place to exist. It never moved toward me, never tried to touch me, never did anything but sit there in the dark, trembling quietly, and I found myself no longer dreading the sight of it, but rather feeling a softness in my chest, a small guilt for the fear I had felt, for the way I had pulled the blanket up to hide from it that first night. I thought, sometimes, about speaking to it, about asking it what it wanted, who it was, whether it was okay, but the words never came, because deep down I felt that it did not want answers, that it did not need to be seen, only to be allowed to sit there in that corner, in that old chair, with its quiet grief undisturbed. Sometimes, I think it was grateful that I did not chase it away, that I did not cover the chair with clothes to hide it, that I did not run from the room. Sometimes, I think it needed someone to notice that it was there without fear, to witness its sadness in the dark, to let it be. The chair remains in the corner, and I still leave my bag there, sometimes my hoodie, but I leave enough space for it to sit if it wants to, and on some nights, when the world outside is silent and the shadows lose their shape, I look toward the chair and see nothing but darkness, and yet I feel it there, small and shaking, and I find myself whispering again into the dark, "It's okay, you can stay," and I close my eyes, letting sleep take me, the room holding its quiet secrets, the chair, keeping its quiet sorrow, and me, no longer afraid, letting it be.
The knocking under the bed. I've always been careful about what I let myself believe. I was the kid who checked under the bed only once, just to be sure, and then never again, deciding if something was there, it could stay as long as it left me alone. Even now, grown, paying bills, working long hours in a city that is always too loud or too quiet, I like to think I know what is real. I like to believe that the creaks in the night are just the pipes, that the shadows in the corners are just shadows, that the knocking I heard once under my bed was nothing more than the building shifting, a branch tapping the window, the neighbors being careless with their furniture. It was easier before I moved here, to this small old apartment with its crooked floors and single dusty window facing the alley. Kind of place that smells like other people's lives, no matter how many times you clean it, like old coffee, rain that seeped in through cracks, and the faint, sharp scent of bleach in the bathroom. I told myself it was temporary, just a place to rest while I figured things out, a box to live in while I saved money for something better. I didn't notice how the floor sloped, how the cold air pooled at night, how the darkness in the corners felt heavier than it should. The first time I heard it was on a Tuesday. I came home late, shoes wet from rain, socks cold, head aching from the endless hum of the subway, the fluorescent lights at work, the way people's voices merge into static by the end of the day. I dropped everything, changed into an old shirt, and fell into bed without brushing my teeth, letting the heaviness of exhaustion pin me in place, grateful for it. The room was dark except for the orange glow from the street lamp outside, the light crawling across the floor in thin bars that shifted when cars passed. I was almost asleep when I heard it. A soft, deliberate knock from under the bed, then a pause as if it was waiting. Then again. Knock. 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 I lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening. I told myself it was nothing, just the building settling, the heating pipes clanking in some hidden rhythm. I told myself I was tired, that sleep was twisting sounds in my head, that I was imagining it because I was drifting. But then it came again, clear, measured, so quiet I could almost pretend it was not there. Knock. 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 It wasn't fast. It wasn't frantic. Sounded patient, like someone tapping politely to be let in, like someone knocking on a door they believed you would eventually open. I wanted to move, to look under the bed, to turn on the light, but I didn't. I lay there, still, the blanket pulled up to my chest, my breath careful and quiet, and I waited. Knocked 3 more times, and then it stopped. In the morning, there was nothing. No sign of anything under the bed, just the dust I had been ignoring, the pair of shoes I had kicked under there, a single sock I thought I had lost in the laundry. I laughed at myself. I shook it off, told myself it was nothing, and went about my day. But that night it knocked again. And the next. I tried to ignore it at first, turning over, pressing my ear into the pillow to muffle the soft, patient knocking, but it was always there, 3 soft knocks, a pause, and then 3 more. It never came at the same time, sometimes just as I was falling asleep, sometimes waking me in the middle of the night, pulling me out of a half-formed dream that scattered the moment I opened my eyes. I started keeping the light on, but it made no difference. I could lie there, the room bright with the yellow glow of the lamp, staring at the shadows under the bed, and I would hear it, so soft it felt like it was inside my chest. Knock. 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 Should have terrified me, but it didn't, not really. It unsettled me, yes, made sleep difficult, made my chest tighten with a discomfort I could not name, but there was nothing violent in the sound, nothing threatening. It was a small, careful sound, a reminder that I was not as alone as I thought, that something was there, waiting, asking to be noticed. I found myself listening for it, waiting for it, lying in bed with my eyes on the ceiling, counting the seconds in my head, wondering when it would come. On the nights it did not, I found it harder to sleep, turning over, restless, ears straining for the soft rhythm that had become part of my nights. Sometimes I wondered if it was the previous tenant. The landlord had said the last person left suddenly, in the middle of the lease, no explanation, no forwarding address, just disappeared one day, leaving the apartment empty, dishes still in the sink, a toothbrush on the bathroom counter. I thought about that sometimes when the knocking came, about what kind of person they were, what kind of life they had, whether they were lonely in the way that clings to your clothes, whether they had sat in this room, on this same bed, listening to the same soft knocking, wondering if they should open the door to whatever was asking. I thought about looking under the bed. I thought about it every night, the way a child thinks about looking into the closet, the way your mind tells you if you look, it will go away, if you face it, it will stop. But I never did. Some part of me felt that if I looked, it would be different, that it would change whatever fragile agreement existed between us. Knocked, and I listened. That was enough. One night, the knocking came again, but softer, hesitant. I was half awake, drifting in that place where dreams and thoughts blur, and I whispered into the dark, "What do you want?" I didn't expect an answer, and none came, but the knocking paused, and in that pause the silence felt full, like it was considering the question. I turned on my side, facing the edge of the bed, the small darkness underneath, and I whispered again, "I'm sorry." I didn't know why I said it, but I meant it. The knocking did not come again that night, and I fell asleep deeper than I had in weeks. After that, the knocking came less often, as if it was satisfied with being acknowledged, as if it only needed to be heard, to be known, to be real in the quiet of the night. And when it came, I no longer felt the tightness in my chest, no longer felt the cold trace of fear down my spine. I would hear it, and I would breathe, and I would whisper into the dark, "It's okay. I hear you." Now, it has been weeks since the last knock, and the silence is heavier than it used to be. I find myself lying in bed, listening to the creaks of the building, the hum of the city outside, waiting for that soft, patient sound. Part of me misses it, the small reminder that I was not alone, that something was there, reaching out in the only way it knew how. Part of me feels guilty, as if I failed it somehow, as if it left because I did not do enough, because I only listened and did not truly see it. Sometimes in the early morning when the light is thin and the room is still, I think I hear it, a faint memory of a knock, soft as breath, gone before I can be sure it was there at all. I find myself whispering back, "I'm still here, and I hope wherever it is it can hear me too." If you ever find yourself lying awake in the middle of the night, listening to the soft, deliberate knocking from under your bed, don't be afraid. You don't have to look if you don't want to. Sometimes it is enough to listen, to acknowledge that something is there, to let it know you hear it, to let it know it is not alone. Sometimes that is all it needs. And if it stops knocking one day, if the silence returns heavier than before, you may find yourself missing it, wondering about the quiet conversation you shared in the dark, wishing you could tell it that you are sorry you could not do more, that you are grateful for the nights it let you know you were not alone. Sometimes even the things we fear are only asking to be seen, to be known, to be heard, to be led into the small, quiet places we guard the most. And sometimes in the dark it is enough to whisper into the silence, "I hear you," and to hope that, somewhere under the bed, in the hidden spaces between what is real and what is not, something small and patient is listening too.